Welcome to this edition of Tuesday Talks with Twyla. We are into the new year, and today I want to talk about a concept that I ran across this morning, and I was like, yeah, this is something that I see my people deal with. Do you ever feel like you were just dealt a crappy hand? It was just given to you, right? So the metaphor here is that this is the circumstances that you were given. This was, the hand you were dealt, like it's out of your control. And if it is your circumstance, then it might be. So what do we do about that? Do we just get resentful? Do we, just focus on how unfair it is? We just focus on all the negative about whatever that hand is, right? Whatever that represents for you, your circumstances in life. So there's two things I want to talk about with this. The first one is recognizing what things you are actually categorizing as the hand you were dealt, right? Is it in fact a circumstance out of your control? Because sometimes we label it that way and we do have some power over it. So we want to make sure that we get very clear about it. Is it really something out of our control? Like who our mom is out of our control. The way we were raised or, the way we were brought up or, some of our life circumstances are in fact a circumstance out of our control. But sometimes it's not, right? This job I'm in, this job I'm stuck in, this position they put me in my job, right? They reorganized or they transitioned or they demoted me, right? All of those things that we want to say are out of our control are not. So we want to be very clear about that. It can feel like it's out of our control. It wasn't our decision to be demoted. It wasn't our decision to be reorganized. But we still have a decision in the fact of whether we stay in this job or not, right? We do have power and agency over the situation, not the circumstance, right? The circumstance might be I was in this job and now I'm in that job, right? But that doesn't mean we can't change that, right? Who our mom is or who our dad is or what town we grew up in or what town we were born in, what country we were born in, those things we can't change. So we want to make sure that we are very clear about the difference there. And then the second thing, if you feel like you were just dealt this crappy hand and all you focus on is the hand itself, is the circumstance, and you put all of your energy into how unfair it is and how resentful you are and how bad it sucks and like all of the negative thoughts about it, and that's where you just pour all of your energy, you're missing all of the opportunity to focus your energy, to shift to what can you change? What can you do? How do you want to make something better? Right? Even if this is the hand you were dealt, what do I want to make my focus? How do I want to shift my focus? Where do I want to put my energy? Because while we're spending all of that energy telling ourselves it's unfair, it shouldn't be this way, right? That energy we could use to say, what can we do here? How can we make this better? How can I make different choices? Where can I put my energy to move myself forward? How can I create something different based on my circumstance, based on the things I can't control? How can I look at it differently? How can I change my focus, right? Maybe it's not the thing I think about all day, every day. Maybe I don't think about it. I give myself parameters. I'll only think about it during these time frames. And when I think about it, for every negative thought, I have to come up with a positive thought, right? There's a lot of things that we can do to change our experience around it because all of the thoughts that we have about it, 100% in our control. But it's so easy to slip into that, right? To slip into it shouldn't be this way. This should be easier. This isn't fair, right? And of course, our caveman brain will pony up all of those negative thoughts without any effort on our part. right? That's what it's designed to do. Keep us safe, just be prepared for the negative because it's a survival mechanism. But when we know that, and we know that our brain is just doing what our brain does, and that we have agency over it, we can decide. Thank you, brain, but also this. I want to think this. I want to think this way. I want to focus here. I don't want to think about that all the time, right? We can decide what we think and how we think about whatever thing we cannot change. We get to choose all of that. And the work is to choose it intentionally, regularly, right? Because your brain, your caveman brain, will offer up the negative and it'll do it like clockwork, right? Every morning when you wake up, anything that reminds you of the setback, right? Any opportunity that it can come up with, it's going to provide you with that negative thinking. So you have to be intentional about thinking differently. You have to decide on purpose, I'm not going to think that thought anymore. I'm not going to think that about this thing anymore. I'm going to choose to think something different. And you get to rewrite the story. And you get to decide all of it, all of the pieces, all of the details. You get to decide all of it. Just sit down and spend some time really thinking through, really exploring, brainstorming. How do I want to think about this? How do I want to reframe this for myself? And sometimes we just have to ask ourselves, like, how much of this is actually true? So that we can kind of find the things, right, that are actually part of the circumstance we can't change, and what parts of it actually can change. And if you go through that and you really look at every aspect and decide, right, which category does it fall into, you might find that you have the one circumstance and then everything else that you thought about it are in that column where you can change the thoughts about it. And just that exercise alone will feel relieving. It'll give you that feeling of relief. It'll give you empowerment. It'll give you energy, right? It'll open up the possibility that this could be experienced differently. That maybe this was the card you were dealt, but everything else is within your control. You get to decide all of it. And the best example of this is, you see different people that have had similar, like really tragic accidents or really tragic diagnosis, and their lives are completely different. And some just succumb to it, and that's all that they focus on. And their life is completely different than the people that use that as a catapult to make changes, to live positively, to do everything they possibly could to make their lives better. Similar circumstances, right? Out of their control. But what did they do with it? And I'm a great advocate for, even though we think that this hand that we were dealt is something that is out of our control, when you shift your mindset and you change your energy to the positive, the effect that has in your body, in your life, that is significant. That can have real changes on whatever circumstance, whatever hand you were dealt. That is real. I truly believe that. And you see it, right? You can see it in stories and situations. The evidence is there. We just have to believe it. And I think what happens is we're like, yeah, that was for them, but not for me, right? My hand is different. I'm different somehow. I'm the unique unicorn that only has this one crappy hand that I can't do anything about. And our brain offers that up and we just believe it. We don't question it. We don't even realize, right? I think that's the biggest thing here is we don't even realize that we've slipped into that. We feel like we've been dealt this hand, we've been given it, we have it, and there's just no other choice. That this just is the reality, this is my life now, and there's no options or choices around it. And that's simply not true. So we get this information or we have this situation or circumstance, and sometimes we let that be the end of the road. We let that be our result, right? Like that's our destination. And we don't even allow ourselves to really look at it like, is there another way to think about this? Is there a different way to handle this? Is there aspects of this that are within my control, that are available to me? Possibilities, mindset, the way I think about it, the way I show up, the way I behave, right? All of those things are within our control. But we tell ourselves that that's not true. We tell ourselves that we we're stuck here. There's no options. That this just is the way it is. And we don't even we don't even open up enough. We don't even allow enough exploration or consideration that maybe there's this, and then there's all of the rest of this related to that that I do have power over, that I do have control over, that I do have agency over. I can make decisions around. Do I want this to be the end of my story? Do I want my whole story written around this to just be doom and gloom? Or do I want to change it? Do I want to be an inspiration? Do I want to be an example of what's possible? Maybe to my children or my family or my grandchildren, my coworkers, my friends, my extended family. How do I want to handle this? How do I want to handle this card that I've been dealt? Because there's a lot more to it that's available to us than just this is, right? This is our destination. This is what we're stuck with. This is our result. Because that's generally not the case. There's a lot of aspects that are available to us to create change, to make change, to think about it differently, show up differently. All of that is available to us. But we have to realize how we're thinking now, where that comes from, what that's related to. And sometimes we want to know why. Like, why do I keep thinking this way? Why do I feel like I'm stuck here? We want to understand why. And for those that feel that way, you can certainly explore that if it gives you, some comfort or some, motivation to make the change. But in the end, it doesn't really matter where it comes from. Sometimes our caveman brain just creates it all by itself. It just comes up with it. And that's why. It has just taken the information as truth, as belief, as the result, as our destination, the end of the road, right? The last chapter of our book. We've just, without realizing it, just decided that. But we can decide something different. We can look at it differently. We can step back and go, whoa, look at how I've reacted to that. Look at how I've shown up thinking this way about it. Look at how I've spent all of my time just focused on these negative thoughts. But I could shift that. Either don't think about it as much or don't think about it like that at all. And then what would that look like? How do I want to think about this thing? How do I want to think about this diagnosis, this accident, this poor hand I was dealt? How do I want to think about it? How do I want to show up to it? How do I want my life to be related to this? Because you get to decide all of that. You just have to realize that that's available to you. That whatever this is, this hand you were dealt, there's only a very small piece of it that is actually out of your control. The rest of it, the 99% of it, is within your control. And that is amazing news, right? That is such good news. And so if you feel like you've been dealt a crappy hand, I hope you'll spend some time really going through and figuring out, first of all, how much of it is actually out of my control. How much of it is my thoughts about it? How much of it is, things I actually can change? Sometimes it's a health scare and we feel like it's just, this, um, I want to say diagnosis, but like this, this terrible news. But what if it catapults you into creating a completely healthier lifestyle and you end up healthier in the end? And your health scare was just that. It actually gave you years on your life because it changed the way you were living, right? You get to decide that if you're like, oh, now I can't do anything. Like, this thing that this diagnosis or this illness or whatever it was that happened, and then you just slump into it like it's just this, kind of end result, the last chapter, the destination instead, right? And you don't change your life, you don't change your lifestyle, you don't change your health, right? That's an option. And there's people that live that way instead. And so having something happen and understanding the dynamics of how much of that thing is actually just the small piece that is out of our control and all of the rest of the aspects, the way we think about it, the way we feel about it, the way we show up about it, the way we change our life, the way we change our mindset, how much we think about it, how much we dwell on it, how much we wallow in whatever negative thoughts we have about it, how much we just spend time thinking about like all of the negative, like worst case scenarios, all of the negative, possible outcomes, all the negative possibilities, right? And we don't give any airtime to all the positive. None. We've just decided, right? With this is the hand we were dealt, and so this is what we've got. That's all we've got to deal with. And that's simply not true. There is another whole realm of possibility over here of positive thinking, positive habits, positive feelings and emotions, positive outcomes. It's all available. We just have to decide and not look at the hand that we were dealt like the destination, like the final act, because it might not be. It might just be a bump in the road. It might be something that can shift your life into something so much more amazing than you ever thought possible. It might crack open that window of possibility. It might actually get you thinking differently than you ever have before, right? It might be this amazingly positive thing because of all of the ripple effects that it creates. Those are all the possible outcomes. Those are all the possibilities. So you decide the hand you were dealt, how much of it is actually circumstance that's out of your control and how much of it is within your control. And how do you want to focus your energy? How do you want to think about it? How do you want to show up to it? You get to decide all of it. So let's start the new year thinking positively and making sure that we're not slipping into and getting stuck in a bad hand that we were dealt, right? Until next week, have an amazing week.